So what in the hell do you do with Conor now, right? I mean, that's always going to be a tough question, and it really doesn't matter if you win or lose. Generally, if Conor wins, what does Conor want to do now? But then we all have to sit around and wait to try to get that resolved. And by the way, when does he want to do it? If he gets beat, what do you do? And there's athletes who become victims of their own success. It's a reality. I'll bring Ronda into this, a name that you guys would know. Ronda got so good and she got so big. Her contract got so beautiful in terms of her payment and her participation that she has the headline. You cannot bring her in and put her as a co-main event, by example. You'd have no money left to pay your real main event. You couldn't bring her in to be the second fight of the main card. You'd have no budget left. Certain things that you have to do because of the way this thing is structured. I bring that to you as an example because in Ronda's case specifically, not only was she fighting in main events, she was fighting world champion fights in main events. So when she drops a couple, it was not as though Ronda wasn't still one of the gals. She might have been closer to 7, 8 in the rankings than she was to 1, but she was still one of the gals if this was something that she wanted to do. She would have been meaningful. She would have been competitive. I mean, after all, that's ultimately the default in sports, right? Can you go out there? Can you compete? Can you get some wins? Yeah, maybe you scuffed your knee over here, but the answer for her was yes. But she couldn't do it in main events against world champions, which is essentially what her level of success called for. Now, I only bring that to you because if Conor is to come back, if he is to do this again, why? And everybody has to answer that. Everybody has their own why. But it's very clear now, it will never be for a championship. It will never be for a championship run. Will there at some point in, say, 2 years, be enough motivation and begrudgment of Dustin Poirier and or somebody else, and revenge is a hell of a motivation, but will there be enough in 2 years? That becomes a real question. You got a healing process to go on here. We do know one thing, and we know it from Conor. We know this to be true, but we know it from Conor, which is we don't get better at something by not doing it. When Conor was healthy and feeling great, he wasn't training appropriately. According to him, this was his own words. He wasn't living life appropriately. According to him, this is when it was a choice, guys. It's now not a choice. We now don't have to wonder, how hard is he working? How is he training? Who's he preparing with? We don't have to wonder because he's not doing any of those things with anybody for a meaningful period of time. So we know that where he's at now, which is a meaningful regression from where he used to be, right? Real simple. No Kit Connor session, just real simple reality that there once upon a time was a guy named Dustin Poirier who could not make it out of the first round with Conor. There is now a time where Conor McGregor can't make it out of the first round with Dustin Poirier. We acknowledge that there's a regression. Okay. We question where that regression came from. I believed in the second meeting, it was just purely the layoff. He hadn't got any reps in, ring rust, if you will. I believe that to be true. Some people thought it was because he wasn't training. Guys, we now have the perfect storm that is going to force them both. He will be rusty the next time he gets in because it's going to be a period of time, and he will not have trained properly because he can't train at all. So if a guy regressed when it was a choice, imagine the regression you have when it's not a choice. Again, tough stuff I'm talking about. But my goal here is to not put somebody down. It's to try to attempt to guess how we can bring them back up. What are we going to do with Conor in X period of time? Should he want to return? And is he healed? Because there isn't a believable scenario where the outcome of Conor and Dustin changes. There isn't a believable scenario where putting Conor in there with somebody whose capabilities are close to his, meaning a number 15, a number 16, a number 12 ranked guy, to give him a real fighting chance that maybe you win and maybe you don't, right? And I'm attempting to guess, Conor McGregor, right, a very good fighter. Very skilled guy. He's just not near as good as Dustin Poirier. Conor McGregor's great. What I saw out of him Saturday, he's a great fighter. He's not as great as Dustin Poirier. So I'm attempting to guess how bad he will be when he returns. And I have evidence that proves he will regress. That evidence is the last time he sat out for 1.5 to 2 years. And the regression that showed when it was a choice. Now it's not. So I'm attempting to guess where those skills will regress to and who it is he could get in there with to be competitive. And if he's looking to just come in and take one final bow in front of the world, I personally would encourage him not to do it. I don't think that's a good enough reason to fight. And nobody gets to go out the way they want. Conor has sent people out. Now it's on. Conor's got to wear that hat. Dustin Poirier is going to wear that same hat. We all go out the same way. Horizontal. So I only share with you, is this the last time we see Conor? Is that a prediction that we want to have right now? Are we mean if we have that prediction? One thing at a time, okay? How's a goldfish eat a shark? One thing at a time. A lot of little bites. The first little bite for Conor is to get home, get with a doctor, to get healed. If this requires surgery, to do the physical therapy, to do all these things so that it does returning is what I'm talking about, becomes a choice. Right now, it's not. There was times in his life when it was, and he still elected to not do it. So what part of us makes believe that he's going to, and why would he? What is it about? Does he want to compete and just be one of the guys? I'm fine with that answer, by the way. I'm sincere, not a rhetorical question. I'm sincerely asking, what would it be about? He gave us some insight as to what this last one with Poirier was about. Not only revenge, not only to right the wrong, but Dana had made it a #1 contenders fight, and Conor wanted to return to take on Oliveira, get his championship back. Respect the hell out of that. I also get the hell out of that. I won't get what a return is like to the Ultimate Fighting Championship knowing title aspirations no longer exist. I heard different things, and I must, in all responsibility, make sure that I disclose that up front. I heard them. I don't know if they're true. But the story went like this. Conor McGregor trained for this camp in Dubai. Now, right away, I got a big problem with that. I'm a Conor fan. I like to see Conor do well. And I don't know that I was choosing that he would beat Dustin Poirier. I want to see him go do well. I like to see his success. And I appreciate the commodity that is Conor McGregor that has more to do with just punches and kicks. It also has to do with entertainment. So I want to see him do well. I hear he's training in Dubai. It pisses me off. Why? They don't fight in Dubai. It's illegal. Do they have a gym out there? Or did you go build one? It's just weird. The whole thing's weird. Your team's not there. Your training partners aren't there. It's weird. Guess what I get told? And I haven't spoke to Conor, by the way. I called Conor. He didn't take my call. Now, Conor, at one point, we were told, was avoiding all media. So I never got this confirmed. Apparently, Chael got thrown on the all media list. He did not take that call or get back to me, which is very rare. But listen to this. The way the story's told is he went to Dubai to train for 2 months. For the first month, he was alone. And I don't mean without his wife and children. I don't mean without Coach Kavanaugh or Roddy. I mean, there was nobody there. The way the story went, he went into a facility each day and he worked on a heavy bag or grabbed the dumbbells and moved them around or visited the treadmill or the speed bag or the jump rope or a combination of all of those things, but absolutely nobody was there. I have a hard time accepting that is true. I always had a hard time. Then for the final 4 weeks, the team came in and he actually had bodies to push and pull. I had a very hard time accepting that story. Other than it was told to me in confidence, it was not piece of marketing whatsoever. And then to watch him fight, he looked like a guy who trained for 4 weeks inappropriately. He looked like a guy that pushed and pulled with another opponent for 4 weeks. Look, there used to be things you could count on with Conor. Count on him for sure. If this is a stand-up fight, McGregor is winning. You can't count on that anymore. He's not winning the stand-up portions. Other things to count on. He's going to be very hard to take down. And regardless of the way your mind is telling you the Khabib-Conor fight went, Khabib was very, very surprised at how difficult it was to take McGregor down. He did a great job. Part 3 is keeping Conor there. Aside from Khabib, nobody's ever succeeded at that, and that includes Chad Mendes, who may be the strongest, at least on paper, wrestler that McGregor's ever faced. Outside of paper, it might be Khabib. Mendes would be top 2. On paper, Mendes would be number 1. Mendes told me himself, man, I couldn't hold him down. He was slick. He kept getting up. Eddie Bravo told me that he saw Conor train in the gym. He talked about how great he was off his back and how hard he is to hold down. He can get that under, he can get his opposite hip, he can get back up to his feet, and we've all witnessed that. All of a sudden, he's not a lock on his feet. In fact, he's losing on his feet. All of a sudden, guys are getting on top of him. I mean, Conor goes for a guillotine up against the fence. The likelihood of that happening? Not good. You sacrificed position. In this sport of MMA, it is position followed by submission. In grappling, it's reversed. You can look for submissions nonstop, to hell with the position. In MMA, it has to be position first. So he goes for a guillotine, which likelihood of happening is so incredibly limited. He does it up against the fence. All the while he puts himself on his back. It's just from an IQ standpoint, none of those things are things that Conor McGregor would have done. Then when he gets put there, he stays there. He had an inability to get up. Getting up in the middle of the cage is hard to do. Getting up against the fence, it helps you. It supports you. And he still couldn't do it. I'm not teasing him. I'm talking about a very clear regression. And if you ever lose your spot, if you're the number 1 guy and you fall to 3 or 4, you will never be number 1 again. It will never happen. And there is no athlete and no sport in any period of time that you guys could offer as a counter to the claim that I just made. We have seen number 1 athletes leave the sport and then a period of time later return, and it turned out they were still number 1. If you used to be number 1 and you lose that spot, and then you remove yourself from the sport, which right now is exactly what's going to happen, it is not a choice, you're never getting that spot back. Does that matter? I mean, does it matter? Do you have the career of Conor McGregor? You won so damn many championships that you trademarked the term. Oh, and by the way, forgot one. Calls himself the champ. I watched him win the 3rd one. I just referenced it. It was against Chad Mendes. He's also the interim champion. He's not only the 45-pound champion, the 55-pound champion. He was the interim champion. He's got 3 championships. We don't have to cry in our beer for Conor. Nothing that I just said is to put salt in a wound. It's a meaningful athlete that might be at the end. And like any other meaningful athlete, at the end, we acknowledge it.